I am not a person. I am a salt-scattered stare, so cold I can keep memories longer than bodies do. That night, a figure flew over me like an opening parenthesis that would never close. Behind him was the sharp exhale of a city that believed it was safer than anywhere else in the world. There were two short cracks, no longer than the breath between two sentences. Then the snow swallowed sound. The streetlights yellowed like old paper, and one name would echo for decades: Olof Palme. People ask me, "What did you see?" I saw how an ordinary decision, walking home like an ordinary citizen, can blow the hinges off an entire nation. If you lean close enough, you'll hear even stone's pores learn to fear. And if you had laid your palm on me in that moment, you would have felt a fading heat, slipping away like a dream upon waking, warmth from the hand of someone disappearing into the dark. I, a stare, no more than the files that fatten with each passing year, and less than a single answer. This is the story of a gunshot, a street, and a nation left at an ellipsis. Stockholm, late February. A row of streetlights draws a thin line across damp asphalt like underlines where history is about to boldface its next word. A couple leaves the movie theater, no bodyguards, no state car. He is the prime minister. But tonight, he wants to be citizen Olof Palme, father, husband, a man on foot. In those years, Sweden trusted an invisible platform. 0.6, that democracy is granite solid. That political violence is an alien smell, and that tragedies happen somewhere else. Sometimes, somewhere else is your own street corner. When they paused at a crossing, history paused too, as if it needed to inhale before saying the next thing. What happened next would become an unfinished case, not just for the police, but for collective memory. And then, the score drops a half step. We enter the story. To name the street is to name a habit. People walk, window shop, say a few lines about the film they just watched, then go home. In those panes, mannequins wear winter clothes. Plastic hands tucked in pockets as if keeping the season's secret. Streetlights pour a thin parchment yellow over wet asphalt, pasting each footfall down like a stamp postmarked Stockholm, late February. No bodyguards in the night, in a capital that trusts normalcy like it trusts the tram schedule. And a man stands there, or has stood there for a long time, like a comma waiting for someone else's sentence. He leans on the city's habits, breathing with the even rhythm of shuttered shops and salt-crusted stoops. No hurry. No fumbling. Just the right place, the right time, the right silence. Sveavägen that night is a steady score. Shoes, cars, voices retelling the final scene as if reading subtitles. Every symphony has a rest. The shooter understands that. A rest is where the conductor raises a hand, where the audience holds its breath, where a decision steps out of thought and into action. An arm lifts, a path rehearsed 100 times in his head. No shout, no threat, just the oblique distance where tense becomes past. Across the street, a couple is talking about the film's ending, the part where the protagonist refuses violence. They don't yet know that tonight history will choose for them. This is where sound steps into image. The first shot, no one has time to define it as anything except a collective shudder. Sound outruns understanding. The ear hears long before the heart knows fear. The second darkens the air, as if a pen pressed down on the words irreversible. When the wife screams her husband's name, Stockholm contracts into an apartment where every object knows its owner has fallen. A window quivers. The wet street swallows running feet. One person collapses. Others fumble, unsure whether their hands should be a brace or a dialing light. The first seconds of chaos are always well ordered. The shooter knows the exit route. He cuts across me. The tunnel Gaddons stare. I hear his breath scorch the air. No alcohol, no tobacco, only the urgency of a plan that chose the right night. Heel on salt, leaving a string of broken sounds like a sentence losing signal. Behind him, hands tremble for phones. Voices crackle like a startled flock. No emergency ever sounded more like a prayer. A nation calls for help. But for someone, before, the bell rang long ago, in '04, and they are the one who hung up. Inside those two short sounds, many strokes were pre-drawn. Strokes of headlines, strokes of statements, strokes of the years that would stop saying not here. Sound departs, now paper speaks. The first minutes set the measure of confusion. A directive spoken a shade too softly, a roadblock raised half a minute late, a stack of tall, short, dark coat, light coat descriptions trodden together like thin snow. Blue and red lights spin on the glass. Those circles never line up with the path of the man already gone. A weapon never found. Search maps unfold a few minutes late, and the places that should have shut are open like a zipper with stuck teeth. Witnesses. Everyone becomes a writer on a night like this. One adds a hat. Another subtracts a coat. 6, and all believe their own story in good faith. In the hospital, doctors race against something they cannot name. Only that it arrived as two short sounds. Outside, Point 6, the world suddenly memorizes a long, thorny Nordic name, because it has just become a common wound. No one sleeps a full night. And kitchens, televisions, guard posts all face the same corner. Small errors pile up like salt in my cracks. Grain by grain, no single crystal kills the truth, but together they drive the cold in deeper. And when the blood has dried, paper begins to speak. Some suspects are more than people. They arrive as complete stories, carrying motive, root, and a convenient ending like a suitcase off the rack. The loner with eyes half-eaten by night. The hothead at war with the world. Angry at a policy and aiming at a symbol. An organization vague enough to hang every political fear upon its hook. Each theory is another lamp screwed in. The room grows brighter. And the shadows grow denser. A footprint suddenly matters. A neon sign becomes a signal. A glance over a shoulder turns cipher. Lineups, where memory breathes to the room's baton. Someone recognizes a face, and the face clicks into the story like two panes of glass. But glass is still glass. You can see through it. It's thin, and doubt can crack it with a touch. Files also know how to walk. They leave one desk for another, carrying fingerprints of many hands, sometimes losing a page in the hallway. Names queue up, inch forward and slide back, like an elevator door opening and closing between floors. The city needs a face. The story needs a villain. A man is brought before the lens. Inside the frame, he looks like an answer fitted just right. right enough for the audience to exhale. On another day, the same frame releases him, as if the truth wanted to try a different size. Justice is a thick coat in the wrong size. Wear it and you chafe, take it off and you freeze. On the front page, point 6, type outruns caution. Point 6, headlines arrive before questions. Readers want an answer within 2 cups of coffee. Some answers only germinate over 2 decades of doubt. The question isn't only who pulled the trigger, but who wants the story to end there. Endings are social needs. They let us clear the table, fold the mourning cloth, and bring back words we'd stopped using: normal, safe, onward. Sometimes a country knows it's wearing the wrong coat, yet no one dares undress in the snow. But what if the killer isn't just one person? Some theories cross borders like night trains, distant organizations, debts from the Cold War, contracts that sound like metal scraping metal in the dark. The map spreads. Red pins prick cities most people know only from weather reports and football tables. Each arrow is a story. Each story, a smoke-fogged room, where a handshake conceals a barely perceptible nod. Other theories turn back toward uniforms, where power and habit stand side by side, sharing a cigarette in the rain. In these theories, 0.6, the truth is too wide to hold. It's too narrow to name. When everything is possible, truth weighs like a heavy trunk. Everyone hopes someone else will carry. Politics echoes longer than gunfire. It hums under cafe conversations, making people lower their voices when certain names appear. On shortwave, 0.6 white noise sounds like snow falling through an antenna. In that noise are the characters of a shared language: suspicion. Let's go back to where the storm began, the corner. By day, that corner is no longer anonymous. People bring flowers, bring questions, and bring their children to teach that democracy is more fragile than it looks. Children ask, "Why are there guns?" Adults answer with sentences that start with "sometimes" and end with "we must." By night, it becomes a leak in memory. Lovers squeeze hands a little tighter passing by. The elderly remember a night when the news spoke in elegy tones. Apartment windows look down the slope. Sometimes someone lingers longer than usual, as if trying to hear whether the bricks are whispering. I'm still here. I count footsteps. And now and then I catch the soft conversations people think no one hears. Someone says, "If only that night." Another answers, "That night is over." Such sentences fall on me like salt. They melt and leave a sting. And then one day they say, "We know now." Years later, a name is placed on the table, and they say the pieces finally fit. 3 letters, 5 letters, or a familiar surname, less important than how the room breathes easier. The official file closes like a book, forced to end a chapter. A processed stamp lands, red ink soaking the page like blood into gauze. But those who lived that night know, some endings are shaped like question marks. Administrative closure is not emotional closure. Memory doesn't obey memos. One paper calls it closure, a passerby calls it a semicolon, and I, the stare, call it a new silence. I don't argue. Stone doesn't argue. I only report the sounds that winter wind keeps returning. 2 short cracks, 1 burst of running, zero point 0.6, and a vacancy stretched over decades. Enough that any names, when set in place, when set in 6, still sounds more like a proposal than a verdict. So what are we left with? What we know. A winter night, a public figure, and an arm's length of air. What we know. Normalcy is a sweater that snags when someone hooks a fingernail. What we know, how a city reflexes to a strike at its heart. It calls, it runs, it knots a name into memory like a scarf against the wind. What we don't know, in every story, where the line lies between the killer and the one who wants the story to stop at a convenient point. What we don't know, the nature of coincidence and orchestration standing together at night. Two hats alike, two footsteps synchronized, two rumors walking in parallel. What we don't know, whether witness memory is a fogged mirror or a window pane onto the dark. What we could test. Go back to the scene with collective memory. Peel away the layers of assumption we call obvious. What we could test. Listen to the rest between the two shots. The silence may say more about the gunman than his silhouette. What we could test. Ask why we tell a case, to close it, or to understand it. And if the answer doesn't come, we live like bridge keepers, checking the bolts each night, watching the water below, trusting the span is safe because someone keeps watch. Truth, sometimes it is enough to know we stood guard, carefully, from one winter to the next. And if the answer doesn't come, an unfinished case isn't a wound that bleeds forever. It's the mark where a watch rests on the wrist. Each time we check the hour, we remember when everything changed. Look at the minute hand, and remember 2 short sounds can stretch across lifetimes. It teaches us how to look into the night, not to fear it, but to see how what felt certain can be taken away in 2 brief sounds. We learn to name the gaps. We learn between 2 walkers, between let's head home, between a corner and a stair. Hold a gap still long enough, and it becomes the place where you hear a city promising itself. Some promises are simple. Children will laugh again under the lights. 0.6, the old will walk their dogs past me without glancing over a shoulder. Friday movies will still end in applause. Others are harder. When the storm returns, we'll know what to call it, where to stop it, and how to hold one another. A broken corner doesn't need a monument. It needs us to pass by. Look at one another, 6, and remember the lesson of 2 sounds. That lesson isn't trust no one, but don't let normalcy be the excuse for not keeping watch. If you ever find yourself on Sveavägen, it may drizzle or snow. The slope may be slick or dry. Pause for a beat beside me, the Tunnelgatan stare. Lay your palm on the stone. Feel the cold climb into your veins. Deeper down, a very old pulse of the city, slow, steady, repeating. That pulse stopped for 2 short sounds, then learned to run again. So did we. No one can erase that night like wiping ink, but we can write what follows. Carefully. With sentences that no longer assume, not here. Stockholm's night has passed, but the way it taught us to meet in public, gentler, slower, more awake, remains. A cut becomes a scar once it has met enough seasons. And when we touch it, what we hear is no longer gunfire, but the city whispering to the living. Hold on to each other. I am still myself, a roughened stare, with no gestures and no tears. But each winter, when salt is spread into my cracks, I feel memories melting and refreezing, changing shape like theories. Some say the case is done. Others say the case was never done. Truth is, perhaps, a kind of silence that even I, the one who heard the 2 shots, cannot measure with ears. If you pass by me, don't rush. Set your hand on the cold stone, listen to the pulse of a city once broken, and to a question still warm somewhere between 2 fingers. The Stockholm night will not say the gunman's name. It only asks you, and me, in point 6, how we will guard what is fragile when even normalcy can be felled by 2 sounds.